Dragons are some of the coolest mythical creatures out there, and this time I'll be reviewing Algar the Last Scion by Romankey and the Last Cowl. Hey all, you can call me Reviews, and I'll be your action figure reviewer for the day. If you like action figure reviews, occasional LEGO reviews, stop motions, all that sort of cool hobby stuff, then I think you would enjoy liking and subscribing and maybe leaving a comment after watching this video, of course. So let's begin, starting with an awesome unboxing. Behold the box! Alright, let's get this thing open that has been completely annihilated by AliExpress shipping. Thank you, AliExpress, for never packaging and never delivering correctly. Come on, people. However, back on focus, this box looks pretty cool. It gives you a good bit of detail that you can read there about what this guy is. But overall presentation is rather simple, except for the little flourishes on the actual logos themselves. Otherwise, it's basically just a plain looking box with a couple things slapped on it, but it still gets the point across, which is pretty decent. This is a figure that is a combination between Romankey and the Last Cowl. I'm assuming the Last Cowl did the soft goods, while Romankey did the rest of the design, and honestly, this makes me pretty excited for what that company does next, and whether or not they'll do stuff together. Now, when you pull this guy out, you just pull him out, and he is a double tray. He has his little card in this filament or plastic packaging. I don't know if this was necessary, but it works. I do very much appreciate that this card gives you both in English and Chinese what you would need to keep this figure not in pieces and nice in quality. I would think this is a pamphlet, but nope, it is literally just a big old card with some decent artwork. And now with the figure out of the box, you can see that double tray it has. You have your little silicone thing to keep it nice and dry so that it doesn't get all moisture and moldy and all that other gross stuff that can happen. That's a nice little premium detail, but not detail, little premium thing they added in there. Pulling it out, you can just see all the stuff. There's not too much in the smaller tray. It's just the coats and the stand pretty much with that extra effect part, but a good use of space since that stand is so very much large. And then we have, of course, the main tray with the figure and his main accessories. There is a little bit of tape that was sealing it shut, so of course I had to cut that tape because this isn't filmed, but you still cut the tape. And now that he's finally out and exposed to the air, this guy looks so cool, although he looks like he is suffocating, so let's get that bag off of his head. Who knows how long he's been kidnapped and had that thing shoved over him. And he also comes with these little things attached and taped up. Those are the extra pegs for his hands and feet. And then also in another bag, we have his other head, which has his mouth closed, so I assume that is from his brother and his head. I'm joking, of course. That is just an alternate headpiece. We have his claw hands and all his other hands, like his holding hands. And of course, the epic sword. This thing, just first impression-wise, looks so pretty and cool. And it does aesthetically match him, even though it has a very distinct and different texture. Initially, I thought this flame of peace would go over it, but no, it's a mouth fart. Mouth effect fart, not a mouth fart. The cloaks look really cool. It's wired, but not on every single side of it, but it's tattered, and a tattered wired cape is difficult. Oh my goodness, this figure looks amazing. The paint is glorious. You have this tan sort of center body paint that they did, and then the backs and the sides are in this deeper bluish shiny purple almost. Nope, that's more of a blue than a purple. And just the tan looks with that little bit of red down the middle, giving him that extra depth and detail that really sells this as a premium figure. And of course, he has the little bitty booty cheeks. And that continues down its tail, and that just looks so good. That little bit of a wash they put on there just adds to that sculpting with all the individually sculpted scales. It's a really nice effect, and this figure has an excellent sense of flow to the design, and even though it is kind of a generic dragon lizard monster guy, it just looks great, and all that shading and the head pops off. Yeah, this will probably happen a lot with this figure. His mouth pops up. You're probably not going to lose it since it's big enough, but opening that up, you can see that they did shade inside of his mouth, though I wish it was a little more obvious. But yeah, that articulated mouth with all those individually painted teeth, oh, it's just so good. I mean, just the way this figure's sculpting looks, it gets a little gappy with the neck area, but it's not too big of a deal. It still works. He has those little ear holes. So I wish it was like slighter in there, more transparency looking, because that's how lizard ears work. And the color match between all the parts, despite using flexible plastic, are really nice. This figure feels good in hand, and even though it uses slightly squishy plastic sometimes, it works. And the tail, again, has that detail going all the way through it, and it is a bendy wire, though since this is recorded after, I will mention part of the scale did split on mine. However, it kind of is hidden within the articulation itself, so not that big of a deal. All right, so these thighs have even more of that shiny blue shading, and it looks very natural, very just high quality. I mean, premium, I've already said it, but yes, now there is gappage between that thigh and where his leg connects to the hip, and that's a little bit annoying, but because of all the detail, it almost works. I want to say that it's not a big deal, but it kind of is. He has a good lot of detail underneath his feet. Those things look gnarly, and they feel as they should. I don't know how else to put that. They look as they should. He has individually painted toenails, and of course the detail with the calf. He has very human proportions, but still a sick look that all together, when you put it all, it's just cool. And he is a solid figure. He passes like any sort of solidity test. So let's get on to his accessories. And what an amazing spread of accessories we have. Although a bit simple, it's incredibly effective. Let's start off with this stand. Algar, the last Scion, it has a decent bit of heft to it, this stand, and the screws feel nice and tight. And of course you have your little claw, which is held in by a screw. Thank goodness. I hate the plastic like plugins that Mafex uses. It doesn't work. And the sword, as I said before, is amazing. It's slightly bendy, almost feels like a Marvel Legends sword, so you know it's going to be hard to break and it will stay intact, but it has just an insane amount of detail, and it's a slightly transparent plastic. You can kind of see the light shining through that center part, and it looks so cool, and it fits in pretty nicely into the hand. You just have to kind of slide it in there. And unlike some other companies that have large weapons that can't be held, this hand holds the hand perfectly thanks to that squishier plastic. And of course you have the fire effect part, and I'm a bit mixed on it. It looks really cool. I love the multi-tiered color stages it goes through, from hot blue to the less hot orange. However, it just kind of sits in his mouth and doesn't really work. It does plug into his open head, but you really need the stand to hold this thing up for you. Otherwise, it's kind of a useless accessory, at least in my opinion. Now, even with the stand, it doesn't clip in or have a little peg at the bottom, so I wish they had just gone with a peg hole inside the flame effect part, but what can you do? I'm not the figure designer. Now, his head is really, really cool. You can even see his pupils in there, and this has a mean look to his face. Though I will say there's a tiny bit of paint chipping or extra light paint on the top of his head spikes, but it's not exactly that bad. And of course, you have all the extra detail in the mouth, which really stands out in a good way. And it almost looks a little bit suggestive, but let's move on. Now he has his fisty hands, open claw hands, rawr, his holding hands. I love the squishy plastic they use for the hands that make it nice and easy to put the weapons in, and really good for it not breaking. it's very reassuring to have this squishier sort of plastic. Now, the cowls have this really cool tattered effect, though I do think the wires being kind of just hanging off the side there looks a little weird. But when you actually put it on his head, you don't even have to take the head off. You just kind of wrap it around his horns and then down and over. You might get some threads stuck on those horns, but it's so cool looking. You can just have like some of the coolest poses with this thing. And this extra smaller cape goes around his waist, and there is that little ring thing, and you can basically just slide it through the ring with that extra bendy wire plastic. So hopefully that bendy wire does not break, because that is a very tight hook shape you're making with it. And once you fill it in, you can just have it on the figure, and it works really well, looks cool, looks thematic. It's really awesome, and I am glad that this figure comes with soft goods. Initially I was a little bit worried, but no, this thing pulls them off really well. They really enhance the posability and presence of this figure. And from the back, it also just gives him this aura that you see in these mysterious anime characters, especially if they're walking into the sunset. This thing would look great in the Fallout display if it was are they Dragnars, I believe? Yeah, this thing is cool. Starting on the articulation, and initially his head felt a bit tight, but it overall has a really solid feel to it. He has a rubbery neck piece around that double ball joint that also has a hinge side to side, giving him a great range of motion, though do watch out for that falling off jaw. This would be great if you were Superior Spider-Man and wanted to punch him. If you understand that reference, good on you. Alright, so head, good articulation, arms move up really well. Remember that core torso piece is made up of more flexible plastic, so while the sculpt does get caught on it sometimes, and it is occasionally gappy, it's relatively easy to just put it back into place, and it does move and fit in like a dream, because you can basically push it slightly beyond the sculpt's own limits, which is always good to see. That individual crunch on the top joint is really nice, but it could be better. Once you put in that middle section, it gets really good at putting it all together, and this thing has basically the articulation range of a Reveltech, but the solidity of an SH Figuarts, which is just an insane and high quality premium balance. He can move side to side, and he can cross his arms forward completely to an insane degree. This is just amazing. Even now, I'm still blown away by the articulation on this scaly friend of ours. Now, his tail is attached by a single ball joint, and I don't like it. It falls off really easily, though it does have enough friction to hold itself up, and you can't even move it forward and up. And there you can see the slight crack that is in the tail. It's not the worst thing as long as you have it bent, but it did crack pretty quickly. No other cracks after this review, so that is a decent sign, and it does help with his balance. Now, his arms are on a swivel, which is super nice, that bicep swivel. And you have your double jointed elbow, which does look a little awkward from the inside. It could be worse, but it does almost feel like a Marvel Legends in that sculpting, but overall, not that big of an issue. And of course, you have your standard wrist hinge swivel thing. And of course, you have your little ball joint that connects into the waist, and that has its own bit of movement, and then you can rotate it up and down to kick forward that far, utterly crazy, back that far, utterly crazy, which is what happened when you don't give a figure a butt and instead have the butt be built into the legs. The double jointed knee goes that far, and then you have your ankle pivot, and that just swivels around as far as you want it to go, even though the ankle itself doesn't have a swivel necessarily, but it works. And of course, this figure is perfectly solid on that leg, though a little looser on the other. I recommend using Kiki's joint fix to tighten that up. All of this range gives you an immense amount of poses you can put him in. He is just a stellar experience to play with, and put him in any position you want to put him in. Except for you Scalies, please do not do the Dragon Bird Man thing. you do know what scalies are, general audience, right? You know there's furries and there's scalies, and there's probably some third thing that you don't want to know. Alright. It's time for the size comparisons! Starting off, we have Figma Link from Tears of the Kingdom and Snail Shell Tokiwa Kazune. Next, we have King Toys Dragon Lu, and we have SH Figuarts Kaiju number 8. Next, we have Black Suit Spider-Man from Marvel Legends and SH Figuarts Okaroon from Dadadan. And overall, this is a pretty tall figure. Finally, wrapping up my thoughts, and this thing is awesome! This man has presence, and just tons of it. This thing has everything you would want to pose on your shelf, so for a fantasy series, and even like a sci-fi series if you want to go that route, this thing could look cool in the background of a Star Wars stop motion or Star Wars display, maybe even a Dune display. I don't know if there's any dragon type things in Dune. He looks awesome and has just all the quality you would want from a figure of his price tag. These companies are cooking lately and making a lot of the more standard Japanese companies like SH Figuarts and Reveltech look kinda like pathetic in comparison. This thing has all the quality at the price and basically double the amount of what you would want quality wise compared to like all these other things. This thing is amazing and I highly recommend him. As I said earlier, I got him off of AliExpress. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Bye-bye! Fire butt! It's the Fart Dragon!